All right, y'all. So today I want to do a very quick review of Monsters University. This is a Pixar Disney animated film that came out back in 2013. It is a prequel to the iconic 2001 Monsters Inc. And I recently got the chance to revisit this movie just by pure coincidence and wanted to give you my thoughts on it. So going into this movie, from what I've heard from the general consensus of Pixar people and people who like the Pixar movies, the general discourse I've heard about this movie is it's not as good as the first one, and it's really just another one of those disappointing follow ups that Pixar has made, apparently in a string of failures, so to speak. And I have to disagree. Every time I've seen this movie, I really enjoy it. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think it's, especially if you compare it to the first one, it's not quite as good as the first one, obviously. But, it's not really trying to be like the first movie. It's really just trying to be its own thing. It's a prequel. It's a movie that's kind of designed to set up the events that would lead into Monsters Inc., which it does so, I would say, pretty well. And I think this is a really fun movie. I always have a lot of fun with this movie. I really enjoy the zany characters. Honestly, like there's aspects of this movie I literally prefer over the first one. And I know that might be a blasphemous statement, but like the buddies at Uzma Kappa, the fraternity house that Mike and Sully have to join to kind of get back into Monsters University. I've always enjoyed those characters. And there's an image on the bottom right that's like a part of the movie where basically the other fraternity houses, including Roar, are trying to make Uzma Kappa weak and make them look like super silly, not scary looking animals or monsters. They're not cut out for this competition they're in. And it's one of my funniest and my favorite parts of the movie. And just had to include it as part of the image for this video. And I just really enjoy this movie. I think it's a fun movie. I think that it's really solid. I don't think it's as bad as some people like to say it is. I think it's just a really good prequel. So I'm going to get into this review, give you my pros, my cons, kind of go deeper into my thoughts, and of course my overall opinions. So starting out with my pros, the voice cast. It's great. Pretty much all of the returning cast from the first movie come back here, and they all do a really great job. I mean, Billy Crystal as Mike, incredible. I mean, I think he still holds up from the first movie. John Goodman, who voices, I believe that's his name, voices Sully, does a really good job. I will say that my only big problem with some of the voice actors is just because this film takes place over 10 years later when they finally did it. Some of the voice actors, their voice ages, so it sounds a little bit off, and especially since this takes place in the 1980s, this takes place a while before Monsters, Inc., they should sound younger, but I don't think it's a huge problem. Like, that's kind of like one of my only little complaints. The voice acting's really good, though. They all do fantastic performances with their voices, and the whole cast in general. Nathan Fillion plays a role in this movie as one of the monsters of the enemy fraternity house, Roar. And there's just a lot of like other monsters here that come back for other roles, even little cameos from previous roles from the first movie. It's great stuff. So I think in general, the voice cast is great, especially the Uzma Kappa monsters. Love them. The voice actors who do their roles are fantastic. Another big thing, and this is kind of a given with a Pixar movie, the animation quality is absolutely amazing. I love it. It kind of has this more realistic style like the first movie, but everything looks so vibrant and colorful, and the whole design of things like Monster University itself, when you get to see the campus, it's a beautifully designed school. Obviously, it's designed like a Eastern-style college university you've seen in tons of movies, and, this movie in a lot of ways plays up the trope of other college movies like Animal House and stuff like that, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's more of a homage to that type of style and those type of movies. But I love the design of Monsters University, the CGI animation fur. You can tell how much Pixar has hugely advanced in terms of technology and what they were able to do. And you can see that with Sully's fur. You can see that with all the other creatures that are present throughout the whole movie. Like, honestly, I don't think they could have made a movie like Monsters University back in 2001. I don't think technologically Pixar could have quite accomplished that back then. But it's really cool they were able to do it, and I think the quality of the animation is top tier. And also the story. I like the story for the most part. I like this ragtag group of monsters who clearly, from the appearance alone, are not scary. But thanks to Mike, and we really get to see the birth of the relationship between Mike and Sully in this movie, and the origin of their whole friendship here. It's really well done, and I thought it was well done and well written. I like how there's like a push, through adversity, push through sheer intelligence, push towards, reality, and not letting anything stop you and your goals. And there's like a really a nice theme of perseverance and goals and wits, and it's just a really good story. It's, like I said, a kind of little bit of a rags to riches kind of narrative here, but it's really cool. And I thought it was really well executed. The colorful cast of supporting characters here, I've already mentioned it a few times, but I really enjoy the Uzma Kappa monsters. Each one of them has this funny, friendly personality, and they're all unique in their own way. It's really good, and there's just so many hilarious lines, and I can quote them for days. It's just a really, they're a really great cast of characters. It's only a shame that they've never really appeared in too many other Pixar-related projects, and I would honestly see a show just about them. They're that great. Mike and Sully are really great. I like how the relationship begins with them hating each other, and then eventually they kind of come to an understanding, and they grow throughout the movie. Like Mike, for example, is kind of like pushing through things no matter what. His endurance, is only great and stuff, but also comes with the sudden realization by the end he's just naturally not a scary monster. And he goes through a change by the end, realizing that he can use his talents for other things, like managing Sully and doing other things with his abilities. So he changes. Sully, who in the beginning of the movie is this very arrogant, know-it-all, self-centered, I don't need anybody to help me kind of monster. And by the end, realizes with Mike, he needs someone like Mike to help manage him, to hone his talents, to become more of a team player, to realize that, sometimes you need to work with others to get to bigger things. So each character in the movie learns something. And this also goes for the Uzma Kappa monsters. They all learn something and grow and change. I mean, in the nature of the contest that they're participating in, the scare games, they have to change and evolve. And they obviously make it to the very end, and it's really cool. And I just think that, that theme and how the characters grow is one of the things I think makes this movie really strong. And I really enjoy the story of it. And, there are some controversial decisions, especially the whole thing with Sully, who he manipulates the last contest in the scare games. And, there's a whole drama with that. They get kicked out of the university, but as a result, they actually become the versions of the characters we see. And they also go to work at Monsters, Inc., and obviously leads into the first movie. But, it's kind of funny how life doesn't have like a direct path sometimes. Sometimes things get kicked out, sometimes you get kicked out of school, and then, you still end up being very successful, but just in your own way. And I think that's a really good theme. It's a more natural theme because life is very unpredictable as it is. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. And in general, I thought the story was pretty good. Now to kind of get into my cons, because while I think the jokes are funny, the story's pretty solid, the cast of characters, some of the character growth is really solid, especially compared to some other weaker Pixar movies, because there's way worse Pixar movies than Monsters University, I'm just saying. But yeah, for some cons, I will say, in terms of cons, what are some of my issues? I'm kind of trying to think of some. I would say that, the movie itself is pretty solid in terms of its pacing. I did wish we get a little bit more development of the side characters, just because I feel like the movie kind of races towards a conclusion at the end. I think that would have been a detail that was pretty nice. I also think Sully's decision was obviously pretty controversial at the end. I've always been kind of mixed about it, just because on one hand I get why he did it. It kind of feels strange that they get kicked out at the end, and then they end up working on Monsters Inc. I guess it's kind of one of those painful, reminders of life and challenges and consequences. But yeah, that's always been an element of the movie I've been a little bit iffy on. Some of the villains are just kind of some of the antagonists are kind of They could have had a bit more development. Maybe too, the movie could have maybe leaned less on some college movie stereotypes. But other than that, I don't have too many huge complaints about this movie. I mean, there's some great sequences, great moments, especially the scare games. I mean, one of my favorites is the scene where they're trying to get their flag, the fraternity, the fraternity that's competing in the games, their house flag in the library without making too much noise against this giant librarian monster. One of my favorite moments of the movie. And I just don't have too many complaints. I mean, sure, the movie has some, kind of relies upon some basic formula college movie tropes, and there are certain elements of the story that absolutely could have been improved upon. But I would say that overall, there's not too many huge complaints I have with this movie. I think it's really solid. It's really funny. There's a really great cast of characters in it. And I always have a fun time with this movie. I can't tell you if it's, better than the first one, just because I haven't seen the first one, frankly, in years. I think the first one is better, but I can't tell you off the top of my head, honestly. So I'm just letting y'all know. But as a prequel, it's pretty solid. It's one of the few prequels, I think, that does a good job at setting up the events of the first movie. And I think it does it pretty well. So, yeah, my thoughts on Monsters University. I think it's a pretty underrated Pixar movie that came out in 2013 from them. It's pretty solid. I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun when I watch it, and has a really colorful cast of characters and pretty well, sets up the events of Monsters, Inc. But, yeah, my thoughts on this movie. Hopefully you all have a good day. Peace, y'all. And also, not hashtag, but Monster University is the best university. Yeah, screw Fear Tech.